Hey everyone, in a previous video tutorial, I had shared with you how to create an audio overview or a podcast using Notebook LM. What if there was a way though to do it a whole lot easier and to do it right in Google Classroom with Gemini? Well, that's what I'm going to show you today is how to create a quick podcast right in Google Classroom using Gemini. So what we are going to do is we're going to go over to Google Classroom. And so I am over at Google Classroom now, and I'm going to come over here to the left side and click Gemini. So you need to be logged into your school account and then go to Google Classroom. Of course, you will have classes here listed. I do not, but then go over to Gemini. And as we had explored at one of the professional development days, when we talked about AI, you will see there in Gemini and Google Classroom a whole bunch of different things to choose from. For our sake today, we're going to go down here to create an audio lesson. So if you go ahead and click create an audio lesson, it's going to come up with this screen where you're going to tell it your target grade and the topic. And so you have to obviously make that fit for what you are teaching. But for today, I'm going to do third grade. So I'm going to put in a 3 here. And then the topic that I'm going to explore is the solar system. I could go through and now just give Gemini permission to create me a podcast and audio overview of what it would deem appropriate for third grade and the solar system. But I'm going to show you a little trick here that will make it more appropriate for you and that you have a little bit more control over it. We're going to get a prompt to put in here and direct it in terms of what we want part of the content to be and how we want the content framed. So you say to yourself, you might ask yourself, how in the world do I come up with a prompt? I can't think of it off the top of my head. Well, as I have shared before with some of you, the best way to come up with a prompt, if you can't think of a prompt, is to ask the AI to help you to come up with a prompt. So if we come over here to Gemini, I'm going to show you here in Gemini a chat that I had initiated with Gemini. And here's what I asked Gemini right here. You're an expert in Gemini and Google Classroom and at creating prompts to put into the create an audio tool. Please provide me a prompt for my third graders at a Christian school to create an audio overview about the solar system. Please ask me any clarifying questions one by one that will help you provide the best prompt. And so here's how Gemini answered. I'd be happy to help you craft a stellar prompt for your third graders. Using Gemini in Google Classroom to generate an audio overview is a fantastic way to blend science, literacy, and technology. As some of you have also heard me say before, the AI always is very complimentary of you. Since we're aiming for an audio-specific output, the prompt needs to guide Gemini to write a script that sounds good when spoken using clear transitions and engaging hooks while staying age appropriate and aligned with your school's values. To get started, here's my first clarifying question. And so remember, I prompted it to ask me questions one by one. Would you like the audio overview to include a specific connection to a biblical worldview? In other words, mentioning God as the creator or referencing specific psalms about the heavens? Or should it stick strictly to the scientific facts of the planets? Okay. And so I answered and said, yes, please connect it to a biblical worldview. So you see, I'm beginning to guide it now so that it fits our purposes as a Christian school. I say, please connect it to a biblical worldview, mentioning God as the creator and referencing and quoting scripture. And I asked it to use the NASB 1995, which is the version we use at FCS. And it had also asked here if I wanted a persona for it. And so I said, yes, let's use the persona of the teacher is going to be a space explorer. And so I came back and said, oh, that's wonderful. How to frame the lesson. A space explorer persona will definitely keep 8-year-olds on the edge of their seats. Using the NASB 1995 provides a solid literal translation for those scriptural foundations. Here's my next clarifying question. So you see, it's asking me these questions and it's thinking on its own, or I should say it's generating on its own. He says, do you want the overview to cover the entire solar system broadly? With a quick mention of the 8 planets, or should it just focus on a few specific wonders like the sun and the earth's unique design for life? And I said, cover it broadly. And then it asked me, or said, what I can do next is tell me how long. And I said, about a 7-minute audio overview, please. says, oh, a 7-minute audio overview is great for third graders, long enough to be immersive, but structured enough to keep their attention. Since this is for a broad overview, we will ensure the Space Explorer guides them from the sun all the way to the icy edges of our system. Here is the comprehensive prompt you can use in Gemini and Google Classroom. So finally it gets me to where I want, okay? But going through all that, it's going to provide me this great prompt here. Gives it a role. Okay, you are a seasoned, enthusiastic space explorer who loves discovering the wonders of the universe and sharing them with children. And then it gives me a task. Write a script for a 7-minute audio overview of the solar system designed for third grade students at a Christian school. And then there's content requirements. Start with an exciting blast-off sequence. Mention Psalm 19, verse 1, the heavens tell of the glory of God. The sun, describe the sun's power. The planets, it goes through, and then Earth's special design. Pause at Earth to explain how God perfectly designed it for life, quoting Isaiah 45:18 from the NASB 1995, and talks about biblical integration and conclusions, and then the tone and the style. So my point in showing all of this to you is to see how you can just, start with telling Gemini and Gemini Chat, hey, I'm just trying to create this prompt for Gemini and Google Classroom to create an audio overview, and it'll write this great prompt for you that can be specifically tailored for our context as a Christian school that wants to exhibit a biblical worldview. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and copy that. Let's make sure I'm at the end here. Yep, and so I'm going to copy this. I went a little too far. Start with roll. Copy. I'm going to go back over to Gemini. So here's what I want to do, okay? Where it says add content, I'm going to click on that, and I am going to paste in that whole prompt. Now, you could also, if you had a document, let's say, or PDF on your own of your lesson, and you're just wanting to use that information, you don't even have to use a prompt. You can just copy and paste it right in there and add your content. And so, so that's pretty cool too. Okay, let's scroll down to the bottom. So I've added the content. Now I can personalize a little bit the audio. Now I'm going to tell you that this is a brand new tool from Google to be used in Gemini in Google Classroom. And so all of the options that are available right now as I record this are very limited. I fully suspect that in the days to come that they're going to add more voices and things like that. So for example, for the student voice, it kind of sounds like an adult student, not like a third grader would. So it's kind of limited right now. What you can do is you can come over here and select a teacher avatar or picture. So let's do this lady right here. Okay. And then you can also, there's 2 voices to select from. Voice number 1. Sounds like a man. Voice number 2 is a woman. And so since we selected the woman avatar, we should use the female voice. Now over here on the student side, let me pick this girl here. And then this one is opposite. I think voice 1 is the female voice. See, that might sound like a senior student or a college student, but certainly doesn't sound like a third grader. Again, hopefully they will fix that so that it's a little bit more applicable and that your third graders that might listen to this would have some affinity. All right, so I have done all of that. I personalized the audio lesson. Then what I'm going to do next is hit generate audio lesson. It has taken me to this page now, and what we see as we look at this page is that it is building out the script for that. And so you see different things appearing on the screen, and what it will create for this audio overview or this podcast is a back and forth between the teacher and the student. And so we're going to let this cook for a minute, and I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while it cooks. All right, so it has gone ahead and has finished what it is doing. So down here, you'll see it has created 10 minutes and 36 seconds. I had asked for 7 minutes, about 3 minutes off. But if I scroll back up here, I can see the whole script here. And so remember, as we talk about anything with AI, you are going to want to read through this or listen to this, of course, before you share it with your students to make sure that it is appropriate, to make sure that the AI didn't make mistakes. Now, if you really want to get creative, what you could do with one of your classes is you listen to it as a class and try to find the mistakes. That's a great exercise in helping your students to find some wisdom and discernment in evaluating AI types of things. So you see, she starts off, well, hello there, Space Cadet, get ready to strap in because today we're blasting off an amazing journey through our solar system. And then here at the bottom, she says, focus on how truly incredible God's creation is. And then she quotes here, the Bible tells us in Psalm 19:1, the heavens tell of the glory of God. And so we're going to see interweave through all of this, okay, because we use that prompt that said, hey, make sure this is from a biblical worldview, make sure you're using NASB 1995, that it is going to quote scripture and reference the creator and the creator's amazing design of the solar system and how Earth is perfectly designed for life by God. Here's the reference to Isaiah 45:18. He didn't create the earth to be empty, but formed it to be inhabited, just right distance from the sun. Let's go ahead and listen to it. All right, I'm going to stop it there because you get the picture. So it's a back and forth between the teacher and the student. Of course, we gave it that persona that the teacher was to kind of serve as this space explorer, and so to make it a little bit fun for the third grade students. Again, it's all in how you go ahead and prompt that. So you've created that little podcast. Pretty easy, right? So what do you do with it, and how do you use it? Well, what you can do is go over here to this export button, and you can export it to Drive or export it to Slides. Let's start with exporting it to our Drive. And so that means that it's going to save it to our Google Drive. So if I hit that, it's going to take just a moment to go ahead and to do that. And then it's going to come up with a new screen here. Okay, so here is the new screen that it came up with for us. And so it is now saved in the drive. Okay, if I wanted to put it into a certain file in my drive, I hit this little folder up here where it says move. Okay, and then you can tell it where you want it to save in your drive. If you just want it in your whole drive, if you want to put it in a specific folder, I have an AI folder, I could just move it there and do those types of things. So you are able to export it to your drive. Then once it's in your drive, of course, then you can share it on Google Classroom as part of an assignment. You could put it on a slide in Google Slides and play it for the class and listen to it as a class as a whole. You could email it to your students. Anything that you could do with any type of file, you can do there. And so what we're going to do here is go back to Google Classroom for a second. And now we're going to export it and export it as slides. And so it's going to open up as Google Slides. Now, it's not going to play the audio when it goes through the slides, but it's going to have the slides with all of these here. So let's hit export to slides. Like when I was saving it to Drive, it's going to take a moment to go ahead and to do that. And what we need to do is to move my face there. Here it is. So now I can hit view in Google Slides in the bottom left. That's where it will appear. The first slide that it's going to give me is kind of going to give me the prompt that we used. We're going to just delete that because you're not going to want to show the students that. But here you go. Here's what the teacher says. Here's what the student says next, teacher. So if you just want to read through it with your students, or maybe you read it back and forth where you as the teacher take the teacher part and then students rotate and take the student part, another way to engage them. It's a little bit different than the audio overview. So that is the quick way to make an audio overview. Again, you can do it right out of Classroom, Gemini in Classroom. Go to create an audio overview. You can also leverage Gemini chat to come up with a good prompt and you can have something that is directly tailored with a biblical worldview for whatever subject. I used third grade solar system. This could be used in 11th grade or in second grade or in seventh grade, whatever subject that you teach. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please hit me up. But until then, take care and God bless.